Whenever I talk about faith in politics, I try to make 2 points. The first one, consistent with the point about humility, I always try to point out no religion has a corner on truth. And that's something that we Christians struggle with, by the way, because we tend to think Christianity has a corner on it. Well, if you really burrow deep into the Bible, it tells us not to be so high-minded. Second of all, I try to make the point that if we concede that no religion has a corner on truth, if we concede that all of us, because we're mortals and we're limited, all of us ourselves fall short in our capacity to interpret the grace of God, and our preachers fall short in their capacity, if we agree on that, then goodness gracious, obviously we must agree that no political party or no ideology has a corner on truth. So I don't ever like political arguments that begin with, well, Scripture dictates. I don't like it when the right does it. I don't like it when the left does it. The challenge, I think, that you face if you've been elected to some office is you've got to figure out, how do I frame arguments that are relevant to every single person of goodwill in my community? I don't care about people of bad faith and bad will. You know, typically they don't want to vote for me anyway. You know, so honestly, I don't obsess about them a whole lot. But I do feel that I do owe some argument to everybody in my community of goodwill, everybody who wants some common ground in politics. I don't think I owe them a purely sectarian argument. I don't think I owe them an argument that's purely rounded in my philosophy and my politics. I think you've got to find some way to talk about common values that we have. The other proposition that I have is very much, it's a very simple one to state. The challenge of religion and faith is to unify people and to try to find a space that all of God's children can share. I often make the point to audiences, if your faith has you looking down at anybody, chances are you found a false faith. Because the faith that I know, understanding my imperfect capacity to interpret it, the faith that I know teaches me not to look down but to always look up. To assume the common center status of all of us, to look up for guidance and to realize that all of us have some sin that we carry. The fact that mine is not yours and yours is not mine, that has us all looking upward for some kind of divine guidance. Now, how do you relate that to something like S-chip? One of the things that, and again, all of us struggle with how we translate faith into politics, but one of the nostrums that I cling to is this. Religion and faith teach us to leave the world changed by our presence. Religion teaches me to try to leave this world a better place than how I found it. If you believe that, you're challenged by the presence of 11 million children in the country who don't have health insurance today. If you believe that, you're challenged theologically by the presence of 107,000 children in the state of Alabama who don't have health insurance. You're challenged by it because you wonder, what can I do? What can government do? What can good public policy do to leave those individuals better off? And that is part of why I support government having a more vigorous role than some of my colleagues. Dante is nowhere in the Bible. But I think he probably put this better than a good many of us could ever hope to put it. Governments do err. Kings and leaders do make mistakes. But better the occasional errors of a government acting in the spirit of charity than the consistent omissions of a government frozen in the ice of its own indifference. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there's a spiritual principle for this reason. God will never condemn us for too much compassion. God will never slight us for wanting too much good for our neighbors. God will never slight us for wanting to include too many people. So if I'm trying to do right by God, and I'm trying to also translate that into daily life, into political life, it does lead me to, every time there's a choice or a tension, to try to be on the side of frankly doing too much, if anything, to help people than too little.